Super Rugby Power Rankings, folks, after 8 rounds of the competition. Second week of Power Rankings. I think they were largely pretty decent last week and reflected decently in some of the results this week as well. But the teams are on the move. Remember, we're having a look at their kind of more recent form than their actual just position on the table. We'll go through them from bottom to top, and you guys can let us know your thoughts where they are right and maybe where there's a few question marks, because I had a question mark about 2 of the teams in particular. But sometimes the table and the power rankings match, and if you look at the Fijian and Drua, that is big time matching. The power rankings have got them 11th. They are 11th on the table. They're the only team in Super Rugby who have only had 1 win thus far. Obviously, their travel schedule is rough, but they were at home at the weekend after a bye, so if ever there was a time to get prepared for a game, it was their game against the Crusaders, but the Crusaders have been in good form and beat them pretty comfortably, 31 points to 14, so I think we would all agree thus far in the season the Drua's spot is there. Next we've got the Highlanders, who are down 1 spot in the power rankings into 10th. They were 2 spots higher last week. They played the Force over in Perth, which is a fair trek. They got within 9 points, but that's not even close enough for a losing bonus point. So it is a rather long losing run the Highlanders are on at the moment. And their spot in the power rankings and on the table, I think, is kind of reflected there. They're 9th on the table, 10th on the power rankings. Recent form, pretty poor. They're playing the Drua next, so that'll be, I don't know, unless they draw it, somebody's going to get a win out of one of these 2 sides. My Blues are up in the power rankings. They're up into 9th. They were in 10th last week. They scraped just barely past the Hurricanes at Eden Park at the weekend, so they've gone 1 spot up in the power rankings. I'm still not thinking they are looking like a team which is going to do anything at the latter period of the season. Can they make the top 6? I mean, mathematically, yes, but you wouldn't look at the way the Blues are playing and say they are a surefire thing. The bookies have still got them with decent odds for the playoffs, but I don't know, man. It looks like a pretty far road at the moment for mine. And then next, down 2 spots, is the Waratahs. So all basically teams in blue in this bottom row. Kind of helps that more than half the teams in Super Rugby are blue anyway. But yeah, the Tars down 2 spots. Came out firing against the Moana Pacifica away from home, looking to maybe catch them kind of on the bounce of a big win over the Crusaders. Maybe the Tars could catch them napping. It looks so for a wee while, but big second half performance from Moana meant the Waratahs ended up getting downed 45-28. Which is a pretty big scoreline in the end. So yeah, the Tars away form this season is pretty awful. They are back home next week, although against the Chiefs, so it doesn't get a lot easier. Now, I mentioned a team, or 2 teams, which I didn't really think the rankings were right. And it's these guys, Moana Pacifica, who've come out in 7th, and then the Canes, who've come out in 6th. Because in my mind, Moana's in better form than the Hurricanes are. Hurricanes just lost to the lowly Blues, albeit only by a point, in a match they very well could have won. And Moana is on the back of 2 bloody good wins, an away win over the Crusaders and a home win over the Tars. So why is Moana below the Canes? Well, I had a look at my old formula, and it's nothing in it between the 2 sides. The only difference is I preloaded the power rankings for the start of the season with some of the scores from last year. So the fact that the Canes finished really well on the log last year and Moana were down the bottom means their starting score was higher than theirs. So recent form-wise, Moana is definitely in better form. So you could probably swap them. My heart would swap them. My head would swap them. But because I chose to preload the formula and it's too late to change it now, that is how they have come out. But Moana are still up 2. And the Hurricanes are down 1 from last week's power rankings. Next, we got the Western Force, who are also up 2 spots. They are in the playoff hunt. They are 4th on the table. Remember, they've played 8 games thus far. Their record is 4-4. I think everyone else is still at 7 games. So the Force are on the bye next week. So they have a chance to be passed by some teams who are lower on the table than them. But man, their record is at evens. They beat the Highlanders. They were given a bit of a challenge at home, but they still managed to walk away with it, and they're playing some bloody entertaining rugby. So good times for fans out west in Australia. Would love to see them maintain some form and at least book a top 6 spot. They are long overdue for a playoff appearance. And then the Brumbies are here in 4th. The Brumbies, no change with the Brumbies. They were on the bye last week, so not enough to be passed by anybody. And nobody has dropped below them on the power rankings, so they are steady as she goes. Top 3 does have a change. The Reds, who we had 2nd on the power rankings last week, below the Chiefs, ahead of the Crusaders, have dropped to 3rd with that loss to the Chiefs at home. They gave the Chiefs a pretty good run in what was a good game, but ultimately ended up losing that one. But I think it was a good enough game that the Reds have backed up some of their kind of, talking points that have been made about them being a pretty quality side. So still encouraging signs despite the loss. Crusaders have taken the red spot. They're up into 2nd with their big win away in Fiji, which was potentially a banana skin game because you've seen a few teams slip up in Fiji before. And remember, they had a bit of extra pressure having lost at home to Moana the week before. But no, they handled it well. But still, the Chiefs in Super Rugby, the top dog. They're the top dog on the table. They're the only team who've only suffered 1 loss. Everyone else is at least at 2. That's the Crusaders and Reds. And then everyone else is 3 or more. So the Chiefs are still looking the business. They have the Waratahs away from home in their next game, which will be an interesting one to see if they can maintain some form. Do they still send a full-strength squad over to Sydney, or do they rotate things around a wee bit? Remember, the Tars have been better at home, but pretty poor on the road. So there you go. Super Rugby Power Rankings. A lot of the teams are matching. The top 3 teams match. The Drua match. There's a few guys who are in different spots, like the Blues and Highlanders are in different spots from their actual table spots, like the Hurricanes are, outside of the playoffs on the table. But the power rankings have, I think, incorrectly got them in 6th, but that's the way I set the things up. You guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.